Benny, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to have you here. I'll do the plug. You've just released a book on transformational leadership. This is a heavy book too. There's a lot in here, and it's one of the reasons I've got you to come on the show. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Tim Beanland, good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for inviting me. It's I admire your work, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it.
Thank you. So your field of expertise is in transformational leadership. I'm interested in this because I've been in companies where almost all the time that I've just got in, they're going through a big period of change. So the question that I have always been fascinated with is, what is the big impact of change, and what's the thing that you're seeing? And there's multiple things, but what do you see as the thing that people need to get right when it comes to change? Change in any aspect, change in I know that's a big question to start off with, but yeah, what are you seeing in the space?
Okay, so the thing to get right in terms of change, well, look, call me biased, but I tend to advocate for leadership development and leader development as a way to effectively navigate through change. So, within the space of coaching and within the space of adult development in general, there's a lot of conjecture around leadership and pop psychology and rigorous empirical developmental psychology and everything in between. So I tend to work in the practitioner space, so I'm not in an ivy tower as an academic. However, I tend to work with the best literature and the best science we have, and the best evidence-based approaches in this. So what do we need to get right to make change work is a broad but I think pretty good question. And really what it comes down to is being able to effectively identify and develop good, even great leadership in what's popular now to call VUCA conditions. So volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous conditions. If we take a look around in our globe, in our society, in our companies, in our households, and in our minds, we find a lot of VUCA. So leadership's role in my area of expertise is to be able to bring this into an ordered space where better decisions can be made, better organization and orderliness can be made, and better results can take place in an ecological way. Now, this is not simple, and I know that the trend is to simplify everything and try to make things really, really simple. That's the thing with complexity. It's complex by nature. So it requires a leader to be appropriately complex in their thinking. They have to have a sophistication and a mental ability to be able to do that. They have to have the right access to clarity of thinking and language. So they have to be able to communicate persuasively, build arguments, do that kind of thing. And they have to have what we call VUCA skills, which are the abilities to work collaboratively with the perspectives of others, to work through a decision-making process to bring all this together. So in managing the mess we're in, the status quo, when big change is required, we look to identify and develop the people that have the potential, the capability, and the developmental altitude to be able to best be placed to take that on. So my approach is all about developing the leaders, to work with leaders to develop themselves and their people to help tomorrow be better than today. And there's a whole process around that, and that's why I'm here to share that.
Yeah. So what can a leader do? Maybe a leader's listening along to this because they've clicked on and they've gone, man, our company's about to go through big change. Maybe, the company is big or small. It doesn't matter. All companies go through change. What can a leader do? And you mentioned a couple just by name, but maybe going a little bit more deeper on what those things are. What can a leader do in order to make the change successful and in order to really, really get the most? And they're changing for a reason. how can they get people to buy into the mission, and what can leaders do to facilitate change?
Yeah, well, look, you're not going to like the answer, but it depends. So it depends on what we mean by big change. It depends on how long the change has got to go on for. It's a very universal question, but let's take a few key principles and that I think would be useful for the listeners. The first of which is, we know that we're better in VUCA conditions. We're better in conditions that are, again, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous when we have collaborative capacity. So, like you were alluding to, the ability to bring people together, facilitate a generative conversation, to be able to take their perspectives, work with their perspectives, coordinate their perspectives to get more visibility of what's actually happening, to enable better decisions to take place. So I think one of the key skill sets in the decision makers toolbox was probably a limited word. I would say master skill set is the ability to facilitate, to the ability to not just bring people along for the ride for this whole buy-in idea, but actually be able to leverage their many eyes, ears, and hands to be able to work together on the change. In fact, the definition of transformational leadership is a leader who develops a vision and then works with their people to refine that vision and to implement the vision. So it's very much about working with people. And as challenges and change becomes more and more complex, we find the leaders that thrive and are able to shape culture over time and are able to build remarkable movements much larger than themselves are the ones that have a strong skill set in collaborative capacity. And we've mapped this whole skill set with some of my associate companies and collaborators and advisors. There's a wonderful body of literature on how to do this. There is a lot, but I'm pleased to say it's readily available for those that want to take the journey. There you go. Long answers, Tim Beanland.
No, this is why I got you on the show. We met at a networking event, and even though we talked briefly, I could get the sense that you were a deep thinker, just in the jokes that you were making and things. So I like the long answers, and I hope people listening do as well. What about resistors to change? I've been in organizations, as I said, where I've gotten in at the ground level, where I'm coming in as a new person to help implement the change in terms of this is the stuff that we want. In that period, I saw people adapt to the change and love it, and because if transformational leadership is about getting your people in line, I've seen people love the change and be like, this is the best thing ever. I've seen people resist it, and there's a couple ways you can do that. Two of them, actually. So one of them was able to see what was happening but questioned. Eventually, they were able to come around and buy into the vision, but one of them just had to go. It wasn't a good fit for them anymore. So what is the best way that a transformational leader can deal with resistors to change? Yeah.
Well, look, I can't give you a direct answer without a specific scenario, but hopefully I can give you some useful frames for it.
The best answers are always, it depends, honestly. So yeah.
So context is everything in this case. But look, let's use this as an example. Most of my work is to help leaders think about their thinking and decide about how they're going to use processes to decide other things. Which sounds a bit, cerebral to a lot of people, but really what we're working on is their rules and their heuristics for how they go about making change and progress and things occur in their world. And I think a good coach consultant, that's the level they're playing at. It's really restructuring the systems, both internally for the leaders' thinking and externally for their culture and their business processes. Right. So what do we do about people that don't buy in? Well, here's the thing. the first thing we need to do is make sure that the leader has the right thinking to be able to make the decision about what to do with them. Now, we're all subject to a lot of biases, some more unexamined than others. So really what we need to do is look at this through a lot of different lenses and perspectives to get a full picture. So, our mate Bob, sorry to any of the Bobs out there, it's not you, but say Bob is resisting change over to a new CRM system that he has to put in his admin minutes of what he's doing, which will allow the company to track their sales volumes and reporting, which would enable greater strategic outcomes and help them have visibility over what to do and improve performance and yada, yada. Right? So that's Bob. And Bob's like, nah, I'm not doing that. It's just not for me. It's not working this way. I'm not doing it. And let's give Bob a character as well. Bob's a rock star. Bob outperforms all of his colleagues. So he's got a bit of swagger about him, and I don't want to do it. So now you have another layer of complexity. You have a top performer that's rejecting the system that the company requires, and what do you do? Right? Now, Bob might also have good reasons for this. Bob might have noticed that there's 15 lines of a form to fill in that's going to keep him off the phone doing his job and making the results. So Bob might actually know something that we don't. Bob might have some wisdom in his resistance, right? Bob might also have things going on at home that are really difficult, that have nothing to do with his actual personality traits, and that's making life extra hard, particularly in the face of change and experiencing grief and emotions that are not pleasant around this, that nobody's actually taken the time to ask Bob about. So all of a sudden, it's not Bob likes it or Bob doesn't, but a whole rich, interconnected system of things that Bob is trying to communicate. So what do? Well, we spend time with Bob. That's a good start. To sit down and go through, and there's a systematic way of going through this. It's like, how does this affect Bob's view of the culture? How does Bob view the actual process? Could he make it better? Is there an argument for it? How would his improvements and his suggestions about the system affect the whole system? So really, like, the simplest answer is listen to Bob. Now, if Bob's just an asshole and Bob's just there to rock the boat and he's all about himself and not the bigger picture of the company or the strategic view or the systems or the results it can give us to improve everybody's lives and really where we're going, Bob's probably going to have to go get a job somewhere else, right? But the danger is...
Even if he's the top performer?
Well, it depends. Depends what the true value system, what the core value system of the culture is. Now, the culture might be the Wolf of Wall Street, top performance, perform or die. That might be the culture, right? That may be for the firm. And in which case that would be, for them, appropriate. But it might not be. It might be a customer service focused culture, which Bob doesn't play into, in which case wrong fit, wrong role. It might be that kind of high performance results are everything culture that's trying to move and transition to a more customer centric culture to be able to make these things happen. And then Bob might have to adjust to get there. So look, what I'm really trying to tell you here is there's so much wisdom when we get to the coalface, we get to the front line, we get to where the value's created and where the problems occur. So if you really want a snippet, soundbite, bit of advice to bang up on your socials, spend time with Bob. He knows some stuff. And
spend time with Bob. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to get pinged by people named Bob now. That's how these algorithms work, right?
Yeah. There'll be Bobs going, oh, you're going to listen to me. I don't get listened to at home. Thank you.
Bobbing up all over the place, Tim.
Bobbing up all over the place. I think because at the end of the day, we're humans. You can look at the employee resisting, but he said something very interesting there. Bob might have stuff going on at home. Bob might might be resisting change because he's not technologically savvy. Bob might have reasons for the resistance that you haven't thought about in your ivory tower up in head office.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we listen to Bob? If we talk to Bob, how do we, is there a structure? Is there a conversation? For me in podcasting, I've learned how to listen. I've learned how to shut up. I don't know if you felt that, but how do we listen to Bob so we get the insights from Bob?
Okay, so there's a lot we can do here, and in the interest of making this useful for the listener, I'm just going to suggest one thing, and that is to be curious and to resist the urge to draw conclusions prematurely. So the attitude that you could bring to this, and I get that there's time constraints and decisions have to be made, and that's part of the world we're in, and that's an important factor too. So the real thing that's happening here is we're actually getting better at being open to decisions and delaying judgment in faster time frames to be able to make better calls and better decisions. That's the meta game at play. But what I would recommend is slow your roll. Use these as opportunities to embrace a sense of curiosity, a sense of not knowing or suspending the ability to know, and what we call dispassionate observation, which is you take your emotions momentarily out of it and you really make a focused effort to be curious empirically about what's actually going on there. That's useful, and we're subject to so much bias. And as we start to, like when I work with executives and we start getting into their decision-making processes, their heuristics, like how they go about making the calls, and we really unpack that and we really dig in and we assess it and we find these edges. They're always surprised about how many automatics they've got just flicking on because it's convenient and it's fast, right? So the work to be done is slow that whole thing down, zoom out, look at it and go, actually, I'm making snap judgments here, 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 and here. And if I could fine tune that process, ask a few better questions, approach it in this way, the whole system of leadership decision-making levels up. When that happens, over time, the whole culture shifts. Amazing consequential things start to happen around a leader that upgrades their grey matter, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that can help with this conversation is actually understanding why this change is occurring and why you're doing it, and the importance, not just the why. I'm not here to quote Simon Sinek. I'm here to actually say the importance of the change. So, why do we need to change? We all know adapt or die. We all have seen Kodak and Blueberry and these companies not change, and the dramatic negative results on the back end of that. So in your opinion, why change? Why? Why? As a broad question, and I know it will depend again, but why does this need to happen?
Okay, so a few parts to that. Totally. You need to, and Simon Sinek was on the money with this, and he, start with why. He wrote a book called Start With Why, and he'll tell you 1,000 reasons why you should start with why, which is kind of cool as well. I like that. And communicating the why and communicating the vision as it emerges, what the compelling future looks like, the reason for the change, and that absolutely that needs to be done, and very clearly and ad nauseum and often and consistently and all over the place. That's 100% right. And you need to have this with enough flexibility in it to adapt to new knowledge and insights. And the management buzzwords agile, but it's really agility in thinking. It's we have this vision, and then somebody on the front line goes, hey, well, what about this? It's no, stick to the vision. It's like, hold on a second, this is valuable information. So it's a faster feedback cycle, right? It's being able to think and adapt to new information. I love the agile, catch cry of today's the dumbest we will ever be, right? It's also the smartest we've ever been, but it's the dumbest we'll ever be. So what we find out tomorrow is going to make our strategy better if we listen, right? If we listen hard with curiosity and with the right systems to be able to assess the information that comes our way to bring it to life, to do that, right? So yeah, you've got to communicate that really clearly. You've also got to have feedback loops in place, because it's not an announcement that goes on a billboard of this is what's up, and then everybody falls into order and goes and executes the plan. That's very industrial thinking. That's when we had a factory with one thing, and then we mapped the process, and then people would go and follow the steps of the progress and the process and deliver the product. Yeah. Robots do that now. Yeah. And we'll do that more so. So why do we need people? And I'm totally team people. I'm in this for people. That's the most important thing. We pay people to relate and to think, right? So we want to use their thinking. We want to help their thinking, collaborate and converge and bring these perspectives to make and do better things. That's the whole game. So here's the thing. The leader has to have, this is a tough job, by the way. Like, I'm not saying I'm not an expert in leadership. I did write a big old book on transformational leadership, and I've implemented it with leaders side by side for the last 12 years. So I know some stuff, but leadership as a whole thing, it's like the most complex thing we've got. It's very hard, and I haven't got it all figured out yet. What I do know is that leaders that are committed to building systems with feedback loops and working effectively with people and evaluating that and moving fast and with conviction and strength towards a vision, but still having enough flexibility in their approach to be able to alter their strategy as they go, tend to outperform ones that don't. And that's pretty darn clear in all the literature.
Definitely. As part of my research for this episode, I went through your website and I found some pretty amazing video testimonials. One of which was Chobani yogurt. Chobani in Australia are a very large brand. You will probably see them if you walk down a shopping aisle of Woolworths, Coles, and those supermarkets. Even I believe when I was at university, Chobani did activations where they gave away free yogurt, and everybody thought that was the best thing ever, including myself as a broke uni student at the time. But what did you do at Chobani? Why did they hire you, and what makes you smile about what you did there? Because it looked pretty intensive from the promo in terms of the workshops you gave, and intensive may be the wrong word, but looked pretty in depth what you did. So yeah, what did you do, and then what was the amazing stuff that came out of that?
Yeah. This is just an amazing example of a full-scale transformation program that I think it was around coming up on 4 years ago. Chobani engaged Big Change, led by myself, to build and deliver a culture change program and an operational improvement program, all bundled into one. And there's no shortage of metaphors or puns when we're talking culture change and yogurt, let me assure you. So, as a father of two who likes to make bad dad jokes, there's plenty in that. So that's a lot of fun. Chobani are a very special business. Their founder was a wonderful man named Hamdi Ukulai. And Hamdi ran the business from upstate New York. And one of the loveliest people you'll meet. He had one job as working on his dad's dairy farm in Turkey, and came to America, and had no background in business, and was able to secure a small business loan, buy an old yogurt factory, paint the walls, do it up, and build a multi-billion-dollar international yogurt empire in a very short space of time, and became a wonderful philanthropist who was very famous for giving enormous donations to Syrian refugees and setting up initiatives for entrepreneurs to succeed in food. So he's the top guy, Hamdi, and his values set around Chobani, around the vision, the mission, the values. That was a huge thing that came from this one guy. And Chobani means shepherd in Turkish. And so his whole philosophy from, this multi-billion-dollar biggest yogurt producer now in the world empire was to share his values of the world and his mission with a larger world. And that was really cool. Now me and my crew at Big Change, we were called into the site in Dantono on Hammond Road there. And, in a global scale, it's just a small site that rocks out in Victoria. But they had a wicked problem, which was people couldn't get enough of their yogurt. They couldn't even make it fast enough. So when Hamdi came and put the money in and helped develop the site, they had a great team there. They recruited, they built it out, and they just grown and grown and grown and grown because everybody loves Hamdi's Chobani yogurt. Everyone wanted to buy it. And they'd grown really fast, and they'd grown in a way of just pumping resources into it. And, whenever they had a problem, it's like, yeah, fix it, keep going, keep making yogurt because everybody wants this yogurt. Great problem to have, like fast-paced business. So when their GM and their ops manager called us in, they were like, all right, so we've grown really fast. Everybody loves our yogurt. However, we've been doing it so fast, we've grown kind of inefficiently and not in the most profitable way. And we've just, been running so fast to keep up with demand for our products. We've missed some of the fundamentals in structuring our people, building our organizational levels and layers of management, developing leadership and management in our frontline and the people that solve problems, being efficient and doing all of that. And they were like, can you do a proposal for us? And of course we said, yeah. So what we decided to do, and we do this in a lot of larger transformation programs, is we said, look, let's start with one part of your factory. And they had a line in the factory. It was their busiest line. It was called the Nova 10 line. And the Nova 10 was pumping out, I think it was, this is going back a little bit now, but I think it was about 1,000 cartons a day. And they wanted to get it to like 1,250 cartons a day to meet their demand and to get the equipment effectiveness up to a certain speed. So we grabbed everyone associated with the line. So we got the managers, the supervisors, the frontline workers, everybody. We put them together and we created a charter for that group of what Nova 10, we call them Supernova, or they called themselves that. We got them to name themselves and create their own tiny little subculture of that site together. And then we worked with them over the next 90 days to optimize the line, to help them develop the thinking to solve the problem on the line, to help them develop their own values that sat in line with the bigger company values, but they owned it. It was theirs, and they developed the thinking, the expertise, the decision-making power, and the group dynamics, and they hit their goal. They hit 1250, right? So that was like a 35% increase in efficiency. Not only that, they developed confidence, teamwork, they resolved interpersonal dynamics, and they built a truly collaborative team. So that was really cool. And, the GMs and people at Chobani said, we like that. Can you do that for the whole site? And we said, absolutely we can, because that's what we do. We're Big Change, right? So we went and interviewed everybody we could on site. I think we did 40 or 50 different interviews across places. We really listened, got to know everybody, got to know what the deeper challenges were, got to know what people wanted, got to know what success would look like for the whole site together to shape it. And we created a program called One Chobani. And this was a culture change program. This was an operational excellence program. This was a continuous improvements program. This was an employee and frontline leadership development program, all bundled into one. So we co-designed that with them side by side. We implemented it with them, ran a whole series of workshops, events, coaching interventions over an 18-month period. And now the program runs in-house. It's led by internal people. It's allowed the business to double, I think almost triple in size within that same framework. And I still get memos and messages from people from a frontline level who've developed, progressed in their career. I still talk to their continuous improvement managers and their management. And the coolest thing about this, and why I'm smiling like a bit of a jackass, is that it's not only allowed the scale to happen with their people and develop their people and develop their careers. It's become their DNA. It's become who they are. And I can't claim credit to that, but damn, it's cool to play a part in shepherding that, much like their name is. And like when we pitch for the work, there are a bunch of lean and process improvement, engineers kick it around, but we're a culture. We're going to develop the thinking, the heads and hearts moving in the same direction of development to make this place really work and hum. And it's been rocking still solidly strength to strength long after we've left the building. And to me, that's that's the whole game. That's amazing. So that whenever I hear that brought up, or whenever I get a call from someone there who's doing great things and, this role or the next role, that's why I do what I do, man. It's just the best. It's like, yeah, pretty cool stuff.
That is really incredible. Not only to go in and implement, but also implement essentially after, by taking someone's career to the next level, by implementing change of the entire organization, impacting the individual, not just impacting the company. To that point, because change is about transformation, change is about personal development, change is about growing. What is there an impact of somebody where they brought up an insight and then that changed the direction of what you thought the change was going to be, and then because of that, this person's even more empowered because they're part of the change? Was there any moments like that where a frontline worker stuck up their hand and went, well, hang on, this is how this works, and this is how I feel about this, and then because I think that's even a separate topic, because the employee is part of the change, they accept the change even more. Did that happen along the way?
Yeah, constantly. So at a large level as well. So large changes can, and by that I mean an innovation that's a game changer. Like a great example is, and I didn't make this happen in one of my workshops, someone else did this. So I'm not claiming to this, but at Coles, do you know who came up with the idea to put roast chicken in the supermarkets? It's a work experience, a work experience girl who someone had the openness to run a workshop about ideas to make it better. So why don't we roast chickens here? And how many people go into Coles to get the chicken and then do their shopping? Anyway, that's an example of a innovation happening where my Japanese friends would call it gemba, which means the place where value is created. Also, the place where the problem is located too, which is interesting that sort of works both ways. So that there is an amazing wisdom to be taken from the front line, and I think a lot of board level executives do themselves a disservice by not spending more time at the coalface, so to speak. Or now we're in a renewables world at the Gemba. Yeah. So there's the big things that happen there, but also to those who really listen hard and listen, like we were discussing before, listen to understand and listen to refine their decision-making process. There are wonderful insights and gifts that emerge in being able to listen from a less biased and less predetermined point of view for the leaders, to be able to ask the right questions and to develop a fuller map of what's going on. And I really, truly think that collaborative skill set it's a big part of the antidote, if not the antidote, to VUCA conditions.
Yeah, awesome. I want to have this section as pitch my product. Look, if the listeners have been listening for 35 minutes now, they obviously like what you have to say. I would love to give you this section to pitch something. It could be a book, which we have mentioned. It could be something else. Yes, pitch your product, Benny. I'd love to to have that chat.
All right. So let me pitch two things, I guess. Actually, I'm not going to pitch. I'm going to.
Yeah. So I use the word pitch. I should probably just talk about what you do. And
I'm not precious about it. Rather than do that, like let me. If you've made it this far into the podcast without either falling asleep or rushing off to execute all the wonderful ideas that have come up in this, one of the two. Here's what I got for you. If you reach out to me at either my website, which Tim will share in the show notes, and you work in leadership, I'll give you a copy of this. If you want to read it, I'll give you an e-copy. If you can reach out and say, hey, I'm in a leadership position, I'm developing myself and my team. You know what? This was pretty difficult to write. A lot of people have found it valuable. If you get this far and you're going to use it, it'd be an honor for me to just give this to you. So holler, and that's there.
Just for the people listening along and not watching, could you just say the title of the book? Just for the people that are just listening.
Yep, the title's called The Transformational Leadership Compass. And my name is Benny Ausmus. You can just check out bennyausmus.com. That's BENNYAUSMUS.com. And you can ping me there. If you've heard me on the Tim Beanland show, and you're actually in a position to work with these ideas, I'd be very happy to share my work with you and send you a copy. So holla. That's one. Number two, if you are a leader that's responsible for hiring and developing and managing people in roles that require them to look after people, require them to develop themselves, you can't afford to get this stuff wrong. The biggest liability you have is putting the wrong person in the wrong role with the wrong amount of power and having them make bad decisions. Let's just get real here. You need the right person in the right role with the right fit at the right time. Doing network and guesswork to figure this stuff out is bad science and bad business. So, if you would like to use the highest and most validated methods of selecting and identifying leadership and managerial talent, and we can get into the science behind this and how renowned, valid, and proven this is, you can reach out to me directly. I will take you through a process that we have that predicts over 68% of role performance variance. And if you're a stats person, that's very, very high. In fact, the highest of all selection and recruitment tools available in the world, as seen in the Schmidt and Schaefer meta-study of all recruitment tools, techniques, and processes available globally. So Don't hire the wrong person for the wrong role, give them power and wonder what the heck happened. Reach out, we'll spend 15 minutes on the phone and perhaps I can make your world a bit better.
Fantastic. If I could clap and it wouldn't hurt someone's ears, I'd be doing it right now. Well done. Good. Really. I think that's powerful. I think somebody's going to hear that message and reach out. You actually said something there. I'd usually move into the last section of the podcast, but I want to actually ask another question off something you just said. Is the science of this, the analytical brain, the person who wants the facts, the figures, the science, the research behind what you do, and I know it'd be hard to quickly summarize that, but what is the science-based evidence that you approach this with, and why does it work?
Yeah, well, it's interdisciplinary to begin with, right? So we draw on as much evidence-based methodology as possible. So we're looking at adult development and developmental psychology, and the cutting edge of that. And even within that field, there is lots of debate about what is right and what is wrong. We're empiricists where we can be. That said, any tools, technologies that we use, we go through a process of really validating and making sure they're the right tools for the job. Beyond that, it's best practice. It's looking at really what's proven to work. And the 200-something references in the book are not things I've made up. They're based on a body of literature that's shown and proven to be effective. We live in a weird world at the moment, Tim Beanland. It's kind of scary because it's sort of post-truth. It's like this whole, postmodern idea of truth is relative, and it's like it's not. There's things that work. There's people that have done tons of work to figure stuff out, and we should figure out the best people to listen to and bring that into our decision-making process. All knowledge is not equal. All information is not the same value. We need to stop that whole thing immediately. What we do need to do is surround ourselves with people, as we do at Big Change, that are way smarter than us in the research field, that are peer-reviewed, well-validated, that have the right tools and technologies to make the best decisions possible. And at the same time, weave that into the art and the magic and the theater of engagement, facilitation, and, as the great KRS-One said, edutainment. So that's the game, sir.
Very, very cool. The last section of the show, let's get to know Benny. So Benny, when you're not implementing change and you're not working on the business and in the business, what do you do with your spare time?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got a family that I love dearly, and I love spending time with them. My wife, my 1-year-old son, my 14-year-old son, we hang out. I love music, so I play the drums quite reasonably well. Play the guitar pretty badly. I love hip hop culture, and I love like underground street music. It's really cool. I love yoga and deep meditative practices in yoga, and sometimes like go to the Himalayas to disappear and learn some ancient stuff. I like fighting too. I like to box and occasionally get my ass handed to me. And I think I like that for the same reason I like yoga. You have to be fully present. What else? I'm very much into learning, growing philosophy and accumulating wisdom through listening to people that I respect and admire. And I think all those things sort of bound together in a community of good people and an opportunity to serve on shows like this with great people like Tim Beanland. That's me in a nutshell. I'm kind of weird too. Like I wake up early in the morning and take cold showers and bang on the drums, and that's me. But you're never going to wonder what I'm thinking. I'm very direct, and I'm happy in my own strangeness, Tim Beanland, and it's taken me 40 years to figure that out. But here I am. Hi, everybody.
Best way to be. And you'll enjoy Jim Penman's episode. He actually talks a little bit about cold showers. He's done a more in-depth episode on his podcast about cold showers, but I know it's a big movement with Tim Ferriss and Jim himself is a subscriber to that. So I'll link you to that.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What is it? And you alluded to this a little bit before. What is it about what you do that when it happens, you step back and go, wow. So just quickly, because you did touch on it before, but like, wow, I'm lucky to be doing this. And this is why I do what I do.
Yeah. I think when I notice, and I have all sorts of benchmarks for this, but when I notice somebody has a shift in their patterns of what they do, whether that's biologically, psychologically, or sociologically. So when somebody like falls in love with learning and you can see them just sort of motivated and moving into that in a coaching thing, it's like, that's it. When somebody breaks down a pattern that keeps occurring in their business and achieves a new goal and recognizes the strategy that got them there and then leverages that. So it's like they've taken that on board and further, that's it. Or when somebody has a massive shift or breakthrough in their business, like they break through a revenue target, or they break through an efficiency number, and then figure out how to step back from that and maintain it. When those breakthroughs happen, that's the whole game for me. I'm just like, yeah, put myself out of a job. Cool. That's my goal is to find new creative ways to fire myself. And when that happens, it's like, yeah, and I feel like I've made an impact in the lives of those I serve. And there's something very, very special about that I don't think I'll ever tire of.
Very awesome. And lastly, the second last question, do you have a quote? Do you have a saying, do you have a phrase that when you see it or you say it to somebody or someone says it to you, that it really, really resonates and really, steps out and goes, this is something that makes sense?
The hard thing is choosing
which one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So when I was growing up, my father was a big advocate of like personal and professional development. He's passed on years ago, but when I would be in trouble, he'd sort of like, I'd have time out in his office, and his office was just like wall-to-wall books of like Napoleon Hill and Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy. And eventually I'd get bored enough to start reading them. And eventually I read them all. And, that really sort of was my, I guess, induction into this, developmental self-improvement, professional development movement. So I'll go with like the godfather of the modern personal development thing, Jim Rohn, who suggested that you work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And, the thinking there is, of course, that's the investment that allows everything else to improve in value. So do the work, and it doesn't end. And if you can fall in love with it, then I think that's something pretty special.
Very powerful, very powerful. And lastly, how do people reach out to you? They've heard something on this show. They want to reach out. They want to connect. They want to have a chat. They want to implement change in their organization. What is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can get me at bennyausmus.com at the website. There's a bunch of goodies there, or there will be when this podcast comes out. Or you can go to bigchange.group, which is my group of companies, and reach out through there. If you contact us, we will contact you back.
Fantastic. Well, Benny, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been Tim, you've been Benny, we've been talking, and thank you for being the expert to share your blueprint today.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Great to be. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.